Well, welcome everyone to another recording of the Social Media Newsroom. My name is Pascal Fintoni. I am joined by the one and only Natalie from 𝗏𝗏𝗃 Media for more news, for more rants and raves about very social networks. Natalie, welcome back.
Thank you so much for having me back. I am super excited to be here as always.
Well, listen, this is like almost the ultimate guilty pleasure in business terms, because we get to talk about our favorite subject, but also we have the 4 segments where we kind of, make sure that there's lots of information that can be used, for all businesses, no matter the size of your marketing team and budget. But also we like to treat ourselves, and we do end all our podcast with the film marketing social media special, and you chose the movie.
Yes, I did, and it is one of my absolute favorites. It celebrates its 30th anniversary this year, so I thought now's the time to do it. It is the incredible Pulp Fiction.
Incredible is the term. I think we're going to be using all the objectives. And listen, we may have a younger audience listen to this podcast. One can only hope. And it's going to be so hard to explain and convey what it was like in '94 when this movie came out. It really had that ripple effect in a world of storytelling and cinema, and of course propelled the careers of Quentin Tarantino once and for all, reignited the career of John Travolta. And it was just going to be fascinating to look at this. And in fact, what I'll do in the show notes, everyone, I'll put a link to our review of Reservoir Dogs, which was also your selection. So I think there's a bit of the thing going on. Now, people would say, well, hang on, Pascal and Natalie, this movie came out in '94. There was no social media to speak of. Well, we have a solution for you. We're going to imagine for a moment that this movie was released just this year, 2024, and what would be the kind of ideas and the kind of tactics that would have been used by the social media team. And I think it's going to be fun. We might spend a bit of time as part of this segment to talk about the film itself and how much we love it, but we promise to then give you lots of social media ideas as well to use in your business. Before we do, we have our first segment, Spotlight on, deep dive discussion on. What are we chosen this time, Natalie?
We have gone for the TikTok for Business Holidays for You Guide 2024. So it's taking us from spooky season to tinsel season, and looking at how we can maximize the last quarter of the year. So great time to review and lots of good content to run through.
Yes, and please, just because you may think I'm not on TikTok or I'm a B2B business, don't discount this segment, because there's some kind of transferable skills in there, some very interesting kind of tactics that is being used. But also, I think for me, as we'll see in a moment, this guide is really smart because it combines insight into consumer behavior and actions, on social media. So that's something we can do. Segment number 2 is the one tech or the one tactic to try out. So I'll recommend one, you recommend one, Natalie. Look at the notes, because we don't talk to each other before we start the show. We've gone for the kind of the oldie but a goodie type of theme. We've seen, we're going to remind everyone that some platform been around for a while and that you should really reconnect with if you don't mind at all. Segment number 3, important or not important. I'm going to bring to the fore researched news and announcement from our social media platforms. I'm going to ask you, Natalie, is it important news or not important? And then segment number 4, as you mentioned, is film marketing, social media special, and Pulp Fiction. Oh my goodness, it's going to be so good. But we're going to start with segment 1, our deep dive spotlight on TikTok, just after this. So TikTok released a report. I would say TikTok releases a lot of reports, and I must confess, this is the one that I thought they've got the balance right between making it very visually interesting. I mean, you could almost use it as a presentation to the team and discuss its content, but they combine, as I mentioned during the intro, good data-based kind of analysis and consumer insight, and then some recommendations to go alongside that.
No, absolutely. This is one of those ones. I know exactly what you mean about the layout, because it's almost built for mobile. So it feels very snackable in its kind of way that you would consume the information that it's kind of sharing. It also makes it quite helpful to have one thorough read through. And then if you're anything like me, you might refer back to it over the coming days and weeks for little bits that you actually want to have a kind of second look at that suddenly become applicable once you have that information and you're starting to to look at other things around you in a little bit of a different way. So it's very much holiday focused, but it is backed up exactly as you described, Pascal, with actually some really heavy research that TikTok has done into consumer behavior and what consumers want right now. And like you say, it's applicable to TikTok audiences. And, you know, you can't blame the platform for wanting us to be encouraged to put out content and prioritize marketing to their segment. But because it has this kind of depth of trend research behind it that it's bringing to the table, these are actually trends that we see go beyond one singular social network and actually are probably quite true across the entire digital scape right now. So we can actually take all of our learnings from there and apply them to other networks that may be slightly more relevant or slightly more useful for our business right now. But if you are on TikTok, loads of good stuff there too.
I'm going to give you some highlights and key takeaways, but just to whet your appetite, everyone, and you'll have the link in the show notes to download the report. And it's a straight download, by the way. You don't have to give away your life's information. It's just a PDF. But, and they've had fun with it. Understandably, they would, So segment chapter 1 of the report, Sleigh, as in the slave of Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. Sleigh the holidays, grab seasonal opportunities on TikTok. Number 2, from spooky to sparkly, how to use TikTok for your holiday campaign. Number 3, make it shine, creative tips for show-stopping content. And number 4, which is actually a very good one, festive feasting, plan mouth-watering Q4 campaigns. So they've had a bit of fun with it, using the theme, but don't let that put you off because the content is very, very well thought out. And I think certainly when they start to give some tips based on data, you kind of go, wow. That's kind of nice because for a while, it felt as though most platforms kept the data to themselves about insights and behavior, or they would say, well, only if you spend advertising money are we going to share a bit of it. And this feels like openly saying this is what we understand of behavior currently. These are the percentage figures across a number of, again, customer journey elements, and I kind of like that.
No, absolutely. It brings a bit of data to the table, which I think works in 2 ways. It gets you thinking in kind of real terms. So it's not just kind of suggestions of content and things that in an ideal world, best practice, you might want to consider. It actually really pulls that back down and makes it super relevant to you now within the kind of marketing sphere. So it works on that double level where it does give us permission as marketers to prioritize and take action rather than just read something and be like, hey, that was interesting. But it's packed with good stats and very helpful stats. It starts off with a little bit of a kind of call to arms in so much as it's never too early to start to think about the holidays. And we will know that in marketing, because I don't know about you, Pascal, but Christmas, we murmur about it from kind of July onwards, basically, and it kind of snowballs. I always say if you haven't really sorted it by the first kind of month in Q4, you've probably left it a little bit too late. So now is very much the time to be getting all of your Christmas elements are finalized. And if you have kind of a braver soul than me, you've still got plenty of time kind of for November and December. But ultimately, what we know from the numbers is that actually 22% of TikTok users are actually looking for Christmas ideas and Christmas gifting right now. And actually, we're in that kind of peak period where if we are starting to capture people at the beginning of those sales funnels, where it is arguably easier to grab that attention and drive that awareness because we have a little bit more time to get them to conversion in that kind of system, then actually now is the time to start ramping up that festive content, and certainly providing a little bit of help, because if that kind of 22% of gifters are starting to think about what they are getting people for Christmas, now's the time to be there with a few kind of suggestions. We also saw a great kind of driver for using hashtags, and the report, it does include some of the big hitters. These will be ones that you've heard of before. Hashtag Black Friday, Cyber Monday, Christmas, all kind of, as we would expect. But it does also give a little shout out within the Sleigh the Holidays kind of section, just to actually as a good helpful reminder to be using the trend discovery tool on TikTok to look for more detailed hashtags for your particular sector. You can find that in your TikTok's ads manager if you are active on the platform. That will allow you to actually take a deep dive beyond those generalizations of like, yes, Black Friday might be a great hashtag to have, but it's going to be be a noisy one. So be prepared for that. Make sure your content cuts through. But actually, are there more niche hashtags that you can be using to target your ideal customer right now? And it's great to do a little bit of research for your brand. Now is definitely the time to do it, even if you're not planning on using those till, say, the end of November to really push.
Listen here, for everyone listening, is you're not on TikTok, but you are on other social media platforms, and that behavior will carry over. I mean, I don't think that people behave in a very unique way just because it's TikTok. And even in B2B, you know, we always kind of look for the buying cycles and when are people planning, making decisions. So that behavior is the same. So again, the research for, you know, what that is and the timings, the research for the right hashtags, and then, you know, the creation of the, you know, of the key messages. I will confess, you know, I was really surprised, but that's also a lesson in this, which is that you should never inform your campaign or campaign decisions based on your own behavior. So I am part of the group of individuals who will wait till the last minute to buy anything at Christmas. My claim to fame is Christmas Eve. I was... for our international viewers and listeners, we have this incredible shopping mall. Is it shopping mall or mall? I never know. Is it mall?
Either, I think, I would say mall, but either works.
Okay. Call the Metro Centre. Christmas Eve, 7 p.m. There was nobody. The staff were already starting to celebrate. I was given free champagne in every store that I went in. I did all my shopping. They were doing the wrapping up for me as well because I was giving money to charity. So it was all done by 11 p.m. And then, so I don't recommend it, however. You know, it can be a bit stressful, or you need to be very open about where you're going to get people because you're left with whatever nobody else wanted to buy. But that's not to say that because it's my behavior that I'm going to let this inform the campaign. I've got to look at the data and say, well, here you go, Pascal, you're in a minority potentially. You've got to adapt accordingly. One element that did actually surprise me as a reminder, I suppose, because we don't hear that often, said often via the other platforms, is actually the post-holiday campaign. So what TikTok is saying is, you know, it feels as though you should get everything done so that you're there until the 24th of December midnight type thing for people like Pascal. And then you can kick back and enjoy your time. But actually, there's a lot of people that go back online looking for, of course, that purchase for January, even all the way to mid-February.
No, absolutely. And I am the opposite of you, Pascal. So I like all of my Christmas shopping done by the end of November. Otherwise, I can't enjoy December. So I think I don't know where it comes from. I just like to stay home and watch movies in December and gaze at the Christmas tree. So that's my kind of agenda for that. But as much as I am that early kind of shopper, I am very much that one that pops back up. And I am very guilty of, I will have a little bit of a short list of what I want to tackle in the January sales, and I will be checking when my favorite retail stores go into sale, usually on Christmas Eve to Christmas Day. So I'm the one that's sort of on the smartphone while the Wallace and Gromit repeat is on the main TV in the living room, just sort of casually checking out quietly whilst pretending to spend the day with family. So that's very much me. Now the TikTok guide refers to this as Q5. From my basic grasp of maths, I don't like the term Q5, but it really does have a useful place within marketing, just to remind us that that is very much a set period of time. So Q5 officially is the day after Black Friday through till the end of January. And that's the season in which actually audiences are looking for treats for themselves, and they're looking for a great deal, whether they're buying for other people in that slot, leaving it to the last minute and having the I guess the luxury of that kind of last minute shopping, but it means that actually our audiences are very, very active and on the lookout. And a lot of what you're saying, Pascal, around the sort of, you know, we run our campaigns up to Christmas, and then Christmas hits and we're off work and we're like, ta-da, that was brilliant. It actually, there's huge potential for making sure that content is there in a space where people will be likely to consume it. Even if you just look in the spike of people that might be getting brand new digital devices over the holiday period, whether they are treating themselves with money that they've got for Christmas, whether they're treating themselves for Christmas, whether they're being gifted a device. Actually, we've got people that are suddenly on these devices looking for things to engage with. And from a brand perspective, actually, it's a great time. It's a great way to get a kind of good amount of visibility. So the official TikTok numbers were 1 in 2 users plan to shop in Q5 to take advantage of those sales and to treat themselves. So it's very, very clear that actually there's a lot of appetite around that, whether that's a product or a purchase that's either giftable, slightly more indulgent, or around the kind of self-care sector where we've been shopping so hard for others, we might just want to kind of treat ourselves a little bit. And that could be linked to a specific goal, because there is something else about Q5 and how it runs into January that sort of links it quite closely with resolutions. So actually there was again some TikTok numbers around 46% might be actually looking to improve their personal values. 43% will be looking for healthier lifestyles. 40% actually looking to travel more. So they're not doing these things in that exact moment, but that might be a great time to hit them with a potential product or service that might help them fulfill these goals into 2025. Actually give them some useful content, some genuine help. 39% will set targets to improve their personal finances. So again, if you're giving them a bit of a bargain, then, you know, everyone likes a good deal. And actually 29% might even be considering a career change. So if you are B2B in certain sectors, and also it would be a great time to get your vacancy out if you are potentially recruiting in the new year. So absolutely lots to think about around that kind of Q5 phenomenon. I'm not a massive fan of the phrase, but I think it's a great way to think about your marketing.
Oh, thank you very much. So let's close on the creative tips. So everyone, we can't go through the entire report. I mean, we're going to steal its thunder, but also it is for you to read at your own pace and use it as a discussion point for you and the team. That's really where we'll look at it. But I like the way they've explained things, and I like the language they've used on occasion, because it's a reminder about also how to get it right on other platforms beyond TikTok. So if you look at the creative tips, so they talk about, you know, that video to have clear key elements. So you have the hooks that should take about 3 to 5 seconds. Then you can present obviously unique selling points. That could be the next 10 to 20 seconds, and then the clear call to action, 3 to 5 seconds. But there's 2 things that I wanted to kind of bring your attention to: is make sure it feels that it's been creative natively within the TikTok environment. And I found that kind of interesting as a bit of a recommendation. And then they talk about also make sure you feel the screen with the visual kind of information. So if you then take that into another environment, that could be you know, Instagram, that could be in fact X, that could be YouTube Shorts, then are we hearing that if you want to do a similar campaign on, let's say, Instagram, it has to feel like it was created natively on Instagram? So what you can't do, which I know people do because time is against them, is to simply download from TikTok and, as I've heard people say, plonk it on Instagram or X and another. And I like the idea of feel the screen with that visual information, which I think is a very, very interesting recommendation.
No, absolutely. And I would say you're probably better off, if you are only going to record it once, record it on a neutral little bit of software and then upload it to TikTok, because there'll be lots of clever things in the LinkedIn algorithm, in the X algorithm, in the Meta algorithms, where actually if they can scan that little TikTok tag on your video, they're going to actually reduce your reach, because they don't like that it's TikTok content. They want it to be Reels content if you're on Meta. It wants to be Shorts content if you are on YouTube. So repurposing will get you so far, but actually there's a huge kind of benefit to a slight recording for different audiences across different platforms, because your different audiences will behave differently on different platforms. So if you're recording for TikTok and you are doing your 30-second kind of video with your kind of standard your intro, your USPs in the middle where you sort of explain and kind of demonstrate, actually there's cool TikTok things that you can do, particularly around things like TikTok Shop, to get audiences to take action in a certain way on that platform. Now, they might not translate directly on Instagram if you're suddenly talking about TikTok Shop, but actually if you are on Instagram and you are talking about your product catalog, that might be a great way of getting audiences involved. If you're on LinkedIn that doesn't have any of those features, but can you make it a little bit more personal, where it's less of a brand and more about your individual connections? So can you be like, here's my profile, send me any questions that you might have about this particular service. So there's lots of different ways that you can utilize that content for different platforms. Spoiler alert, if you are recording short videos and you want to keep your intro the same, just get yourself, and hopefully you'll be a bit proud of this as a suggestion, Pascal, you might even be able to give some extra tips on it. Get yourself a little bit of B-roll so you can cut the video where you want. You've got your one size fits all main kind of, initial 15 to 20, 25 seconds, and then just simply re-record a different 5-second versions of your call to action, and then do an edit for each network. It will save you time and effort versus recording an original piece for each, but it will still allow you to capitalize on that opportunity of having something a bit more personalized for each network. You will simply need a little bit of a kind of product or a kind of service footage that you can create a voiceover for that essentially ties it all together.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Listen, this report is great, as you can tell from the way in which we discussed it. It's only 18 pages, so don't be put off by the term report. It's very visual. It's very kind of easy to consume, but because it's so content rich, as you pointed out, it'll take more than one reading. So I would say, like you and I, you can scan read to get a feel for it, then go back, maybe pick the elements that you favor, and then study it. And then my kind of last recommendation would be, follow the advice that they give you for testing out very, very kind of targeted campaigns. They're saying, well, this could be new to you, or indeed, you're launching a new product. So I like how sensible they say between $40 to $50, try this, and they give you a step-by-step guide at the final chapter for trying out the advertising platform. Again, all of this and all that insight and recommendation can carry over to other platforms. But the key, I suppose, make sure that for the audience, it doesn't feel like all you've done is a copy and paste jobby between the different networks.
No, absolutely.
Thank you very much. Well, listen, let's move on very quickly then. And we're going to talk about the one tech or the one tactic to try out just after this. Now, in this segment of the Social Media Newsroom, we have researched for you and tested either a bit of tech or a tactic that is going to really make a difference to your social media activities. So, Natalie, what is your recommendation for today?
Well, Pascal, wouldn't you like a really convenient way to know what the biggest trends that are happening in the digital world right now are? We have a fantastic tool. It's often quite underrated. And like you said in the very intro, it has been around for a little while. However, it still remains super relevant. And for those that are using it, still bringing a huge amount of value directly to their inboxes once a day. This is, of course, Google Trends. Now, Google Trends is a kind of digital system where actually you're able to jump on and see what the biggest searches and the most popular searches are right now. You can search by country, you can search by sector. So there's a lot of research that you can do. It also has an incredible daily digest, so you can get the biggest trends directly to your inbox, making it so easy to stay on top of what digital audiences are actually looking for right now. It helps massively when it comes to shaping your content, and there's loads of deep dive research that you can do. So if you are thinking about running a blog series on a particular topic and you actually want to see how popular it is, how popular it's been historically, how big it is right now in terms of search volume, Google Trends, fantastic tool for all the research and just that passive kind of heads up on a regular basis of what's really big right now.
Yeah, absolutely right. I used to use it all the time. I mean, it's kind of got a foot in SEO on the social media because it's about what is of interest. And the reports are great, because it'll say, well, these are the kind of, the phrases or the short sentences people are using against that term on an increasing basis and so on. You can really gather some good information and then test it against some hashtag platforms and so on. So no, thanks for the reminder. So as I mentioned, even though we didn't talk to each other, I went for that kind of oldie but a goodie, because recently I've had some customers, perhaps back to our conversation earlier, saying, I've got so much to do and sometimes I'm caught out. And this business of creating images in different sizes. So it's the same product image maybe, or it's the same evocative image, if it's to do more with content, kind of promotion and so on. But you want a square, you want a portrait, you want a landscape, usually in that way. And they say that takes time sometime. And yeah, you can have a play on Canva and whatever. I say, well, in the olden days, I'm going back, we used to have this wonderful little kind of platform called Pablo by Buffer. Do you remember? And it's not been marketed again. And I don't think they've done much work in updating it. But if you are kind of caught out and you need a quick solution, Pablo by Buffer will allow you to upload an image, something that maybe you've taken yourself or that you've downloaded from a platform that provides that service. And then literally it just takes a click to go square, landscape, portrait, and you can download the different kind of version of that, and then you can work through them. You can add the text if you want to. You're not going to have the same kind of quality editing that you have on Canva and other social media specialist platform. But if you really want to do something quick and well, Pablo by Buffer is also very good. And if you're also a lapsed user of scheduling services, then have a quick look as well at Buffer, the kind of brand that offers that service, because they can maybe help you out. But to me, it was just one of those where I'm seeing people, because of the time of year, working fast and hard. And sometimes you just need that bit of help. And this is what this platform can provide. Are you still using Buffer in the office quickly?
So we don't use it for our systems, but it is one of the platforms that we do a lot of training on. So we have kind of like a little roster of kind of scheduling systems, and it's actually, Buffer has got some of my favorite features. The ability to save your Instagram hashtags on there and simply have kind of little lists that you add on in one click. Oh, it's a dream. It has some excellent features. So if you are looking for, I would say quite an entry level, but clever social media scheduling platform, Buffer is definitely one to consider, and one of my favorites.
Excellent. I thought as much. That's what I was asking. So everyone, Pablo by Buffer to help you out with those images in different sizes. Google Trends to help you really remember sometime, but also discover new search terms. Viewers and listeners, if you have other suggestions that will be a good alternative to Pablo by Buffer and Google Trends, let us know. We'd love to hear from you. Let's move on. I'm going to speed things up now with segment number 3, important, not important, just after this. Yeah, so in this segment of the show, I'm going to present to you, Natalie, news and announcements from social media platforms. I'm going to ask you simply to stay with her. It's important and not important. Then maybe we'll go back to a couple of those to have a bit more of an in-depth discussion. So I'll start with news item number 1. Twitter has announced the rollout of their connected TV app, providing real-time updates through short video clips on current events, news, and sports. Important or not important?
Oh, not important. Any smart TV already connects to YouTube, and I think that's sort of got you covered.
Absolutely. Number 2, according to Instagram chief Adam Mosseri, following feeds do not work, with users seeing less engagement overall and less user satisfaction. So the answer from them, AI-powered suggestions, it would seem. Important, not important?
Important, but I think this is a further evidence of Instagram moving away from what audiences actually want on the platform.
Number 3, Hype is the name of the new feature introduced by YouTube to help channels with a small number of subscribers to be more visible. Do you like a video from a small business? Then select the Hype, click button, and your network will get a notification to check it out.
Cool. I quite like this. YouTube is often difficult to break into as a new content creator, so this might give small businesses a boost. I would say important as long as they do it well.
Or Meta recently announced a range of new apps and tech, from its latest video generation tool called Movie Gen to chatting with AI characters based on your interest, or Ray-Ban smart sunglasses.
Not important. I can't imagine having time to have a conversation with a fictional movie character, but maybe if that's your jam, it's more important.
5, Pinterest also had their annual marketing conference called Pinterest Presents 2024, showcasing new features and tools, including the launch of Pinterest Performance Plus, a suite of AI-powered solutions to help you design, publish, and measure your next ad campaign.
Important. Pinterest, their production value is just so much higher than other networks. So these things are an absolute joy to watch. The segments are short and super punchy, and it's just really well put together. But there was actually some quite big news that came out of this kind of latest broadcast, and actually just new dynamic things coming to the platform. Important.
6, YouTube Shorts, Google's answer to TikTok, has increased in popularity, especially amongst younger users. Indeed, the short-form content on the platform is viewed by 2 billion users every month.
Important. It was a bit of a YouTube answer to TikTok, and it means that YouTube is staying super relevant in that short vertical video game.
On the subject of vertical videos, number 7, you may have missed it, but LinkedIn is rolling out a new video carousel feature with a very familiar side-scrolling display of vertical videos.
I think overall probably important, but for me right now, not important. I've seen it in feed and I haven't scrolled across yet. It seems like the first cards aren't grabbing my attention in the way that a kind of TikTok reel might. So more work to be done, or maybe I need to be better at paying attention. Important in the future.
So finally, Meta's Twitter replacement Threads has experienced a significant rise in app download rankings, recently becoming the top social media app in the US, according to App Figures and Social Media Today.
Important. Threads has been around for a while. It's struggled to find its place. We are encouraging people to use it. It's sort of getting there. It's still finding its feet, but anything that can give it a boost and get that user base across to it, important. If we're talking about from a Twitter perspective, not important. It's still got that mass user base right there.
So we're going to go back to a couple, but just quickly on LinkedIn. I saw the videos myself, but because maybe I spent far too much time on social media platform for research purposes, everyone, I recognized them from TikTok and Facebook Reels. They were the same videos, and they were also pushing primarily the high-profile individuals like Gary Vaynerchuk and so on. Nothing against you, Gary, but I don't need to see you in every single platform all of the time. So for me, it was more like, oh, well, it's just a copy and paste jobby, very kindly. So I moved on. But yeah, let's keep an eye on it, because if there was LinkedIn only content with some new faces and voices, I would favor that. I'm going to go back to the Instagram thing. So following doesn't work. What they're saying is, you guys, the users, you don't click on following as often as you used to. You don't seem to like, comment, and share on Instagram as much as you look to, although you can't share as easily as other platform. And according to our surveys, you seem to be less satisfied by your Instagram experience. Therefore, what we're going to do is forget the following, and you're going to have a feed, and what you're going to see will be suggestions that are AI powered. And feels like a very strange solution to the problem, if indeed there is a problem.
No, absolutely. It's almost the kind of the Twitter X model, where actually you go in and now you're on the For You feed, which is different to your following feed. And the For You feed, AI powered on Twitter/X, and it often feels like it's putting content on there that will grab your attention, but it will grab your attention because you're more angry to see it than you are pleased to see it. And there's a risk here with Instagram that actually it will be pushing us down a rabbit hole of this slightly more scandalous to individuals type content. Not to say it's anything that shouldn't be appropriate on the platform, but perhaps if you support a certain sports team, rather than show you content from that particular sports team, maybe it's showing you content from their rivals, and maybe you're a little bit more outraged and you're scrolling to see if there's anything you can find from your team. Maybe it could be something that kind of sort of further sours the kind of Instagram experience like that. I can remember the very early days of Instagram where actually your feed was in chronological order and you could follow a manageable amount of accounts on there. So it actually meant that staying completely up to date with friends, family, and brands was achievable. Now, in the world of endless scroll and kind of that just continuous load more, it actually it makes it harder to consume a manageable amount of content and then move away. And that's what all social networks want. They want us on them, they want us glued to them. But actually, I think this is just a step further away from what audiences really do want on Instagram. It's already, in my opinion, quite plagued by ads, but not usually the most relevant. And it disappoints me to hear that there's going to be further interference within those timelines. And maybe if my engagement is down and I'm not kind of engaging with enough elements, they need to give me new ways to engage in the way that other platforms seem to kind of do. So rather than just a like, you can respond in other ways. Instagram doesn't really have that functionality. It basically has a very limited amount of functionality. So it gets us used to not doing many functions on the platform. Then they complain when we don't do a lot of functions. So it's sort of, it feels like it might be pushing this user base towards kind of justifying elements of change that maybe we don't quite want. I would, if I got to choose, I would go back to that kind of everything in a chronological order kind of timeline. That's never going to happen. But I can only hope that it's AI for good, and it might actually be showing me some content that I might want to see versus content that might make me stay on the platform a little bit longer, but make me a little bit less happy overall.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think for me, it's also this kind of misreading of the situation. If there is less engagement overall, could it be similar? People are busy. We've had back to school, we've got, people back at work, and you're now doing more and more in-person events as well compared to what we used to do a few years ago with online. So I think for me, sometimes it feels like, have you really asked people? Have you really understood the whole situation? And could it be that essentially it's just settling, and people are spending a little less time on Instagram, but when they do so, it's quality time. Do you know what I mean? So I don't know. I just feel like the whole thing seems like a bit rushed, a bit this, a bit that, and doesn't align well with how I see the world, and of course how I want to engage with people. Talking of engagement, very quickly before we close with Pinterest. So the hype feature on YouTube, like it a lot. I like the concept, and I hope that it happens more often. Meta, so yeah, chatting to AI characters based on your interest. What a bizarre thing to do, because no, we want to chat to our friends with a similar interest. The whole premise of Facebook was to find, people who loved movies as unreasonably as I do, and that kind of things. The movie video generator is interesting to me. So right now, there's plenty of options out there, but I think Meta has been the kind of the quiet player around the poker table, letting all the others show their cards. Because I think what's happening at the moment is, so the video generation, what you get is impressive, but useless in a business context. And let's be frank, so it's cinematic, it's artistic, you can name it. But if you want to have a precise message within an audience, your services and your products are now presented by this incredible, beautiful output. But I've seen elements where what you can do now, and I would suspect it's going to grow and grow, is you can upload an image of a product potentially, or something that symbolizes your service, and it will become a 5-second video. And they can kind of do rotations, they can move it around and so on, because they have obviously gazillions of data and hours. So I think that we need to be patient, play with the tools to be a skilled operator and skilled at describing what we want. But I can see a near future where you could upload, let's say, 5, 10, 12 photos of your products and get a proper 30-second advert out of it, done very well. And or photos and videos of you at work from a B2B service point of view, and you'll have a video. So it's coming, but right now it's interesting, it's fun, but from the business point of view, pretty useless. Pinterest Performance Plus. I've noticed they use the plus symbol a lot on social media at the moment, aren't they?
Oh, absolutely. Everything's like a kind of driver. Everything's more, get more. But actually really nice to see Pinterest continuing to evolve its kind of service offerings, particularly for kind of brands, and actually look to give companies a new way of getting their products and their product catalog in front of audiences for minimal kind of effort of kind of uploading and kind of maintaining. A lot of kind of cool AI style systems, but very much sort of human-led AI, where again, a lot like you and I would kind of discuss, Pascal, using it as an assistant, and you are the executive that kind of signs off on these elements. But actually a lot of ways that kind of management on the platform can be sped up. So overall, quite an exciting little kind of showstopper event. And I would definitely recommend popping it on. I would say pop it on in the background, but the visual production, it will actually pull you in, I promise. So a great one for kind of just making some notes and having a little think on. The products in terms of kind of the paid ads that they discuss very much Pinterest features. So it's very much that sort of Pinterest USP of actually targeting customers a little bit like the TikTok element that we discussed, just as they're first starting to consider a purchase. So actually getting in there at the very, very top level of that kind of sales funnel, and actually helping audiences do things a little bit differently and help them achieve kind of goals. So it's very Pinterest specific in its kind of advert placements. But again, there's tons of data in there that are applicable to audiences and how audiences across the web and across social networks are viewing things and how they are likely to interact at this moment. So great if you're on Pinterest, super interesting even if you're not.
What we should do, we should maybe do a deep dive on Pinterest next, because there's been so many new features added, sometimes discreetly, sometimes more publicly, that I think would be helpful for our viewers and listeners to have a big recap on 2024, everything that has been kind of changed, improved upon on Pinterest. Because it's again a platform that doesn't always make the headlines. It's not always covered by other kind of media platforms, but it's an important one, particularly if what you have to offer it lends itself to visual marketing.
Completely. And what might be really interesting and super seasonal, Pascal, is every year they do issue their Pinterest predicts, which is what they think are going to be the biggest trends for the upcoming year. So we could have a sneaky look back at what they thought was going to be big in 2024 and see if it actually came to fruition, and a nice little look ahead to what they think is going to be massive in 2025, because they are usually right.
That was important, not important. Do you have some news yourselves that you've come across that you think we should have covered? Put them into the comments, share them with us. We're always going to want to hear from you, and potentially you get a shout out at the next recording of the Social Media Newsroom. But we have reached the end of the podcast. Segment number 4 is coming soon. Film marketing, social media special, just after this. Okay, Natalie M&A, you chose Pulp Fiction. You reminded me, because I'd forgotten completely, that this year is the 30th anniversary of... Is it a masterpiece? I think it is.
Yeah, let's go masterpiece. Yeah, we're calling it.
Absolutely. Everyone, let's remind ourselves about what it felt like to hear and then see this movie for the first time. We're going to play for you the original trailer from 1994.
Miramax Films is proud to present one of the most celebrated motion pictures of the year. The winner of the 1994 Palme d'Or, the best picture of the Cannes Film Festival.
Come on, let's get in character. Why are you so interested in Big Man's wife? Well, he's going out of town in Florida, and he asked me if I'd take care of her while he's gone. Take care? No, man. Just show her a good time, make sure she don't get lonely. Girl, you see, this is a moral test of oneself.
I do believe Marcellus, my husband, your boss, told you to take me out and do whatever I wanted.
Whether or not you can maintain loyalty.
Night of the fight, you may feel a slight sting. Pride only hurts, it never helps. In the fifth, your ass goes down.
I have to say, play with matches, you get burned.
We should have shotguns for this kind of deal.
We're in a lot of danger, aren't we?
I'm prepared to scour the earth for that moment.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I break your concentration?
Get down, get down.
You got a corpse in a car, minus the head in the garage. Take me to it.
Don't you hate that?
Hey, what?
Uncomfortable silences.
John Travolta, Samuel L. Jackson, Uma Thurman, Harvey Keitel, Tim Roth, Amanda Plummer, Maria de Medeiros, Ving Rhames, Eric Stoltz, Rosanna Arquette, Christopher Walken, and Bruce Willis.
Looking at something, friend? Ain't my friend looking.
Die, you mother!
A new film directed by Quentin Tarantino. Pulp Fiction. fiction.
You really thinking about quitting?
Most definitely.
What you gonna do then?
Basically, I'm just gonna walk the earth.
What you mean walk the earth?
You know, like Kane in Kung Fu.
I remember vividly. So to begin with, this movie I absolutely love because it's almost like a love letter and address to the world of film, the world of popular culture. It's part of that universe that we had a bit of a taster and some taster with Reservoir Dogs and True Romance. But I can safely say that this movie, the whole soundtrack is living rent-free in my head. I mean, I just know the songs and some of the best lines, which we'll talk about the Big Mac and all those things, you know, very, very well. But in 1994, I remember vividly the Cannes Film Festival. And I think actually I just popped into see my family. So I was back in France, it was on French TV. And the chaos that surrounded, you know, the interviewing of Quentin and the cast outside, because there was not enough room, and the journalists and the media fighting literally over each other to get close to the round table where they were being interviewed. And there was an interpreter because the presenter was French, there was an interpreter, and Quentin, the others, Bruce Willis, you know, John Travolta, Uma Thurman, they were all there. You know, it was such a sense of event, but it was justified, wasn't it?
Oh, completely. I think it, you know, on that release, it very much sort of followed up on the incredible hype that was Reservoir Dogs, but also just the fact that it was incredibly new and incredibly innovative at the time. So it had mass hype behind it, and then that hype was further managed via the distribution. So actually, it was quite exclusive when it first launched. It only played at select screenings, making it very, very easy to concentrate all of that attention into kind of single spaces, and it arguably much easier to achieve that in a world where half of kind of everything isn't done online. So like back in 1995, your actual 1994, sorry, your actual online options were incredibly limited. So much easier to kind of keep audience focus. And then when you did have these kind of events and opportunities, and you could get the screening out there, great to have all eyes on it. You almost didn't need to keep your audiences and it's entertained with things like you know, different versions of the trailer, digital updates. So it was very, very much a different time. Perhaps people had a little bit more patience, but actually it meant that you could create these peak hype moments that really helped launch the film to incredible fanfare.
For me, what is interesting, you're right, 1994, so we were 1 or 2 years after the birth of the internet. I think it was the year that I did my first website, very badly, of course, back then. So you have this, you know, kind of a complete explosion of recognition at the Cannes Film Festival. They got the Palme d'Or. And then what follows was a kind of structured campaign, because you had to, so lots and lots of festival screenings, because I mean, people would have heard about Pulp Fiction, or have seen the teaser trailers and the reaction from the media that were there, and the lucky few, you know, from the public that could watch it. But they had to wait till the autumn of 1994. In fact, I'm looking at my notes very quickly. This movie was released on the 14th of October. Now, quickly, everyone, we are recording this on the 11th of October, so we nearly nailed it in terms of the 30th anniversary of Pulp Fiction. So you had, 6 months, give or take, because Cannes is usually March, April, maybe a bit later. So you have many months to go through, and what followed was the festivals tour, of course, interviews galore for TV, radio, and magazines. And then, so by the time Pulp Fiction is coming out, people are ready for it. However, not everybody liked Reservoir Dogs, of course. Nobody likes the work of Quentin, saying glorifies violence and so on. And in fact, only some years ago, he was given that same kind of unfortunate label when he did Inglourious Basterds and so on. So what was done very cleverly, and that's part of marketing, that's part of the job. You say, okay, if that's kind of the sum of the mood out there, we're going to piggyback on it and we're going to use it. And as you mentioned, Miramax and others behind it went to market with the slogan, "You won't know the facts till you've seen the fiction." So it's saying, well, you can let yourself be persuaded by what we would call fake news, or a kind of, the rumble. Why don't you make up your own mind and go and see the movie? And my God, was that movie, and still is, that movie really well received and loved across the media, the critics, and the film goers.
No, absolutely. It was Miramax's first film to surpass 100 million at the box office, even. I think it managed about 104 million, which was massive versus its kind of production and then marketing spend. So absolutely knocked it out of the park completely.
It's hard sometimes. I'm trying to not let my knowledge, a 30-year-old knowledge, to influence my memory of 1994. But even, the poster was striking, and you could tell that, it was playing a nod to the Pulp Fiction. So there's those kind of books that you could read and pass to your friends, and eventually they get dog-eared and kind of tired looking. Of course, it's celebrating the world of cinema, but also the way in which they kind of split the narrative. So you had 3 to 4 different storylines, but not given in the chronological order, using some of the influence of French cinema and beyond. So there was a lot going on in the crafting of the films. And of course, some people say, well, it's too complicated. I prefer it when it's just from A, B, C, D, as opposed to A, E, D, F, moving around the different chapters. But one thing that I think helped a great deal as well with regard to the, to the movie being well received, is that the cast. My goodness, I mean, normally you have the cast for the ultimate massive blockbuster. Back in the days, you would have, essentially all the names you would expect to do the one kind of war movie or the one kind of adventure movie. And this is a dark and gritty, sometimes actually pretty unsettling movie in that kind of strange universe that he has built. And he's managed to affix some pretty impressive names to it.
No, absolutely. Always had the kind of the support of kind of 𝗬𝗵𝗫 𝗢𝗃, who helped very much bring the kind of film to fruition. And there was actually a great 𝗬𝗵𝗫 𝗢𝗃 quote, just to digress slightly and kind of fit this in, where anecdotally he turned to Tarantino and said, "How the hell did you come to write this?" And Tarantino simply replied with, "I watch movies," just as a great kind of, I guess, just love affair with cinema. So we obviously had the kind of the 𝗬𝗵𝗫 𝗢𝗃 kind of backup on it. Actually, it won over quite a lot of the execs at Miramax very, very quickly in terms of its kind of entity. John Travolta was a very controversial casting at the time. He was, and I think actually probably looking back, and certainly based on kind of previous interviews with Tarantino and Michael Madsen, perhaps he might not have been the ideal casting, as Michael Madsen was filming another film, so there was a clash in schedule, and it was John Travolta that was cast as kind of Vince Vega. Within the Tarantino verse, Vic Vega from Reservoir Dogs' brother. So a really nice kind of tie-in on that, and might have resulted in the same actor. But through a twist of fate, we had John Travolta, King of Disco, which brought an entire different kind of element kind of to the film. Very much launched and kind of helped continue to develop Uma Thurman's kind of career. She was absolutely flying, but then still didn't pick very many mainstream films to appear in. I believe the next one was sort of Batman and Robin, maybe 97, 98. So she very much stayed in the indie cinema world. But the biggest kind of name at all at the time was very much Bruce Willis, who switched from the Hollywood blockbuster kind of scene to this indie film with all the hype kind of behind it. And it's very much seen kind of, looking back as actually a pivotal moment within the kind of Hollywood scene, where actually big name actors now may switch more into kind of indie roles and then go back to their blockbusters, but actually give almost permission for, you can go to those lesser name titles. You might not get paid as much, but you can do these as a passion project and help drive the success. So it very, very much changed the Hollywood landscape within that casting. An incredible and kind of, massively dynamic kind of cast, and so many lovely cast stories. So Tim Roth actually introduced Anna Plummer to Tarantino and said, I want you to cast her in your next film with me, Roth having appeared in Reservoir Dogs, but on one caveat that you've got to give her a big gun. So there's so many great stories and just perfect for a good bit of movie trivia behind it.
Number of people after watching Pulp Fiction that would then literally call each other Pumpkin and Honey Bunny. I mean, literally, not that they were obviously attacking drugstores or diners and so on, but it just became part of the language. People were quoting so many parts of the movie. I mean, the Big Mac is one that always makes me laugh, and the reference to the mayonnaise and that kind of things. But there was so many things, and it's a movie that really covers all aspects in terms of as a moviegoer. You can laugh, but you can get scared. You've got jumps, you've got all the action you want and so on. Very, very quickly, before we move on to inventing a social media campaign for Pulp Fiction, it was interesting because the making of and the filming of anything is almost part of this entire story. We could spend some time on that. But I remember Quentin Tarantino sharing when Bruce Willis, I think, became interested, but unless I misremember, he really wanted to play the role of John Travolta. He wanted to play Vincent Vega, and Tarantino just had it more into the Butch Coolidge, the boxer that gets into into real trouble with Marcellus, played by Ving Rhames, and he was saying, "Oh no, I'm going to annoy the #1 movie superstars of Hollywood, Bruce Willis, by saying to him, no, you can't do that one, but I need to go." And he said, spend the entire night agonizing about how do I say this so that I don't upset him, but actually it all went fine. So I think that the whole journey, the making, and the way in which Quentin Tarantino worked with his colleague and brought bits of the true romance that were not used, and bit of this and bit of that, to create, people say to this day, his best. That's up for discussion. But yeah, what a contribution to the world of cinema. And I do wonder how a younger audience would react to it, because they're not going to have the same kind of journey that we've gone through the last years. Can they watch it and still go, wow, what a cleverly told story? And I love that even when you watch it today, and it's been polished in 4Ks and that kind of things, you still have those kind of indie filmmaking imperfections sometimes, and that comes with it. So it's still part of the language. Well, everyone, as it's been obvious to you for the last 10 minutes or so, if not longer, we absolutely love this film. But we need to move on to social media content, ideas, and tactics. So to begin with, if you think about the poster and this unique look and feel, that would look absolutely amazing across all social media platforms in terms of, the kind of header graphics and more. But I'm thinking then, using, of course, my knowledge of the movie, I want to kind of present to you a couple of ideas, and you can share with me some. So number one, a countdown to the film release, imagining that it's released this year. And I think that people will get a kick out of it because they won't know it. But if you use the gold watch, remember the Christopher Walken bit? If you use the gold watch as a visual motif for the countdown, people will say, oh, it's a watch. Then they're going to go and see the movie, and they're going to go, oh my God, that's the watch from the countdown. Then you're going to get a kick out of the story, and you're going to get some nice user-generated content out of that. Another kind of essential would be the character postcard. So using the film poster design as a lead look and feel, I think each character should have their shout out. But I would suggest that perhaps we should do it the way in which the Rings of Power season 1 did it, to really build that anticipation. So they had an initial image, each one per character, of an extreme close-up. So you didn't know who it was. But it could have been a close-up of bruised knuckle for the Bruce Willis character. It could have been a close-up of the earring by the character John Travolta, and so it goes on. So you do a close-up first, then you do a full reveal with the text on John Travolta is, and then I don't know why I changed the voice there, and put the name of the character, and then you follow with a 30-45-second video introducing the character's motivations, but by the actor. And what they did very cleverly with Rings of Power, if you wanted to have the full set of the close-up, the kind of full poster and the video, you had to go onto different social media platforms. And that was so you could find some of them on Facebook, some of them on Instagram, some of them you could find on X and so on. So a bit of a treasure hunt of sort would be kind of way to do it. And then finally, and then we'll move on to your ideas. Definitely, the media absolutely loved it, and there was some very, very good comments and praises for Pulp Fiction. So the technique would be to repurpose all those comments in that kind of Pulp Fiction visual language. I would imagine using a lot of what the poster design is like, and then reshare that on social media. So these would be my top 3 essentials inspired by other campaigns. What would be your top 3?
Oh, I think there's loads that you could do, and it's almost kind of, you can be quite selective with things. What I would like to see, because certainly looking back on the trailer, I thought it didn't do it justice. So I feel like controversially, if you were launching that trailer, while the film very, very much has stood the test of time, I think to launch in 2024, we probably need something a bit different. And like you were saying, Pascal, there's obviously the element of kind of, vertical. Now, would it always be in that kind of horizontal? So different options for the trailer. I think the trailer could be made a little bit clearer in terms of a narrative perspective. I know that was very much the style in 1994. It was a ton of clips put together. But I feel like more could have been done to pull those characters out and get you really invested in the characters, because in true kind of Pulp Fiction book style, actually each one of those stories features a almost singular hero that we become very, very invested in their journey and kind of through. We see them vulnerable, we see them kind of heroic, we see them at their not perhaps best hour. So we're taking on those very personal journeys. I think there would be an option for a series of kind of 3 trailers and almost have them kind of intermingle with one another. I think it would also be really cool given the soundtrack and the clip element and this circular narrative. So actually coming in where it's interesting and then holding that audience interest and then bringing them back around. Actually, could you have the opportunity to remix your own trailer for the movie? And perhaps you could start on a scene and then you could even bring in your own footage, or you could put it together. And I think soundtrack wise, that'd be amazing. So I think trailer, there's tons of things that you could do with it from a social media perspective. I have already kind of referenced the Tarantino verse, but I think if we were launching Reservoir Dogs and then Pulp Fiction, what we would be able to do now is actually have a few more Easter eggs that are not just contained within the film. Think the sort of Marvel end credit clip where you actually get that little reward and you're actually, given something that's so geeky, but you love to see it. It's pure joy. So actually having a kind of online series of almost exclusive footage where characters do link together, like Vincent Vega and Vic Vega. Actually, could we have a little bit of those 2 iconic characters engaging with one another? Or if we couldn't afford them or couldn't get them on set, could we actually just have perhaps something from their childhood and we cast 2 unknown children to play them in their youth, and there's some little Easter eggs, or they say something that is kind of peak dialogue. So I think there's loads that you could do to reward fans and just pull them into that kind of Tarantino verse, for want of a better kind of series. And I think one of the possibly underutilized characters that could be very much used within the marketing would be the Winston Wolfe character. So I think we could have an entire series of Winston Wolfe, perhaps solving more mundane, everyday kind of problems. Whether you could, in a bit of a cameo style service, contact Winston Wolfe with your particular problem and receive a voice message from him, a little bit like when we discussed
genius.
The Mario Brothers, where you could ring up and get the Mario Brother, because he could be like, it could give advice, good or bad, and round off with the iconic, it'll take me 30 minutes to get there, I'll see you in 10, and perhaps the squeal of some wheels. So I think there's loads that you could do.
This is so good.
Yeah,
because
let's do it. Let's just make this.
2024, you could get that with AI. So you get obviously Harvey Keitel to record half an hour of his voice delivered in the manner of his character Winston Wolfe. Where it's a bit abrupt. It's still charming, but it doesn't want to waste any time. And then you could have somebody respond. So you could literally ring in a number, a la, Quiet Place Day One that you and I reviewed as well, and you get a response from him telling you what to do, and then the best one get published online and so on. But I love this idea as well. It could become like a video series. We're talking about YouTube, so people do video series about fixing problems around the house, and then here you have this character telling you how to do, like I say, more mundane thing as opposed to a dead body and kind of a head spread all over the back seat and so on. That is inspired. But the one about Vincent Vega and Vic Vega, according to myths and legends that will surround Pulp Fiction, allegedly had considered doing a prequel where the two characters would actually be together on mission of sort. I'm sure could be a lot of mayhem would ensue, but that would take place in Europe, which meant that would link it back to when, obviously, John Travolta and Samuel L. Jackson are in the car and they're talking about, what happens in Europe. And this would be then my favorite moment in the movie, where I cry with laughter every single time, which is a royale with cheese sequence, as I call it. So we talk about the Big Mac and people using mayonnaise instead of ketchup and so on. And so I think there's an option to get people to have a bit of fun. That suggests that maybe the movie's been released for a bit, where you could use that split screen duet feature you can see sometimes, where the screen vertically split. Vertically on the left, you have someone observing a video being played. So I have this image. So you have the royal with cheese sequence in the car with the two characters playing on one side of the screen, and in the other, you've got the fans eating a burger and putting fries into mayonnaise and laughing. So something with a complicity between the two scenes, I think, will work very well. But I want to go back to what you said about vertical video. So another idea that I had, I've seen this done very well, particularly within the James Bond universe, which is vertical video. Using a rule of thirds, you can have essentially 3 rectangles, one on the top, one in the middle, and one at the bottom. And what you do within those 3 kind of thirds, you play 5-second extracts. So the first one plays and then freeze frames, and the second one plays and freeze frames. So you have a 15-second video that ends up with a montage of stills. And I think you could do that for each of the characters or each of the storylines as well, to remind you what it's all about. And I think that would work very well. I think there's something else as well, because one of the standout moments in the movie, well, there's so many, I suppose it's hard to choose, but it's still a meme to this day, is the Jack Rabbit Slim twist contest. And I feel like we should be able to do something about it. What do you think?
Oh, for sure. Well, there's nothing like having a bit of a kind of dance-off competition. And certainly in a modern world where we are all doing TikTok dances anyway, I don't know when the last time you did a TikTok dance was, Pascal, but I did 3 this morning. Joe. But in a world where actually dancing to camera is having very much a moment, I think there's so much user-generated kind of perspective around that. Whether it was just simply a kind of TikTok trend that people could have their own go at, with that kind of iconic music, or whether it was something that was a little bit more formal, where you could actually submit an entry of your best possible dance, solo or with partner, and maybe even have a bit of a judging facility and make it into a bit of a competition. Might be lots of fun as well.
Yeah, and another thing you could do then, because what you're talking about is tie in with other brands. So I just realized with the royal with cheese sequence, it could be actually a competition about the funniest kind of scene of mimicking that could be sponsored by either actually the fake burger companies that is used within the film, or a real brand. But the one sequence that I remember vividly as well, and I'll be watching it again this weekend for sure, is when they are in the diner. So I think we are near the end, and they talk about dogs and pigs. You remember that one?
Yeah.
And they talk about personality goes a long way. That whole sequence is very, very funny actually, and I'm thinking of a lip sync battle type thing here. Do you know what I mean? Like, so you could literally link it with the actual brand itself, the lip sync battle, or you could do it. But I'm thinking that literally you have access to the audio, and you and one of your friends, you go to your local diner. So it could be actually quite funny, because it won't look like an American diner depending where you live in the world. And then literally you lip sync the exchange between the dogs, the pigs, and the personality can go a long way. And then again, there could be some prizes or some judging of the most liked performances and setups. So now this is interesting, how a movie in itself, the content itself, can be what leads to a social media campaign. So some very good ideas.
No, absolutely. I think there's so much that you can do there. And yeah, I'm sure you and I will probably be coming up with more of them and emailing each other next week. But loads there. So much that you can do.
Tin, I know that you'll be listening to this show, no doubt, and that you're talking about retiring. Don't do that too soon. You know, we've got lots that we would like to enjoy in terms of your own production and so on, effort. But if you feel that was a good, you know, listen, in the space of 20 minutes, we gave you nothing short of 12 to 15 new ideas, Quentin. So have a think about it. And for viewers and listeners, do you think that Natalie and I could get a job in the film industry as social media consultant? But lessons and key takeaways, you very kindly took the trouble to jot them down in the show notes. Would you like to go through those for us?
Absolutely. So I think coming back to that Tarantino film as to how on earth did you come up with this, I watch movies, is a kind of call to action to all marketers that in order to create great content, we must consume content. So actually, you know, making sure that you are following brands that you like, engaging with brands that you like, learning about the world around you, being curious about marketing. We must be huge fans of the media that we produce. So actually making sure that we are consistently staying on top of what's working, and we're educating ourselves, and that we're enjoying it, and we're super passionate about our field. So yeah, how can you not relate to that level of kind of dedication to kind of work? Your circular narrative. So I know it's something that we haven't really kind of gone into the kind of depths of, but the film opens in a diner and ends in the diner, and everything that you see in between is kind of jumping between these narratives, and it's a non-linear storyline. So actually that I guess concept of grabbing audience attention when you can grab it, and taking them with you on a journey, and then giving them the resolution that they're kind of waiting for. Actually, it's a great kind of filmmaking tool, but also it's a great copywriting tool and a great content tool. So actually think about the types of focus around grabbing that audience attention, getting them invested, taking them on a journey, and then rewarding them for sticking with you, to give them the kind of ending that they've been waiting for. And whether that's, you know, a kind of 3-week blog series that gives them a lot of information, whether it's a 2,000-word kind of article, or whether that is a 25-second TikTok video, but it pulls them in, takes them on a journey, and then gives them the kind of payoff. That actual kind of circular narrative, open loop storytelling, hugely powerful for us humans, as we're super nosy and like to find out the ending of things. And finally, I know we've already talked about it, but utilizing your team. So at the Cannes Film Festival, actually having the entire cast, which was at the insistence and expense of kind of Miramax, to have everyone flown over from the States to Paris, to Cannes, to make sure that the audience, I guess when their eyes were on the film, the eyes were on absolutely everyone. So there was so many different ways that you could be pulled into that film that would pique your interest, and actually making sure that you are seeing that support and that huge show of interest. It just really put the kind of film on the map. But it's something that we as business owners and marketers, we often don't utilize our team, but actually we've got that team that's super passionate about what we're creating. Make sure that you are featuring them front and center as much as you possibly can, because they're your biggest supporters, and without them you might not be where you are today.
Thank you so much. You know, I'm going to actually use that. Say, a moment ago, we were quoting the character of 𝗬𝗵𝗵, played by Samuel L. Jackson. Personality goes a long way. I think passion takes it even further. And whilst this is all done with a bit of fun, what Natalie and I are doing, but I think what we're doing here is two things. We're using the medium of film to come up with, you know, good suggestions that can be used in any sectors for any product and services. And one, you could say, well, how can you come up with so many ideas so quickly in the space of 20 minutes? It's simply because you literally think about the audience first and what would make them smile, what would make them tick, what would make them react, and so on. So when you have your next social media marketing campaign, and within the agenda, you'll have social media, it's exactly the reverse psychology, which is start from the end. If you can make them smile, if you can make them think, if you can make them react in a way that is obviously positive for your business, then you can reverse engineer, well, what could that be? And in 2024, your imagination is by far the most important talent and skills when it comes to content in general, marketing in general, the social media, because those platforms and beyond, as you've seen throughout, you know, our discussion, are removing barriers little by little in terms of making it so much easier to construct that message. What you need to have come up with is the essence of what that is. And there are so many examples out there. So I would say to you, you're absolutely right. Consume content, but almost start to organize a portfolio of examples of vertical videos from different sectors and post, and how do people repurpose comments and praises and thank you messages, all those things that are very, very important. But it remains that ultimately it's a visual medium. I mean, film is, but also social media. Podcasting is certainly audio only, but typically people will warm towards that visual stimuli. Thank you very much, Natalie, for all the research and your time today. Thank you to you, our viewers and listeners. This is Film Marketing Social Media Special. We looked at Pulp Fiction. Please send us your suggestions and ideas for other films. Give us a challenge. It'd be something, maybe a movie that we've not seen before, although I don't think there are many out there that Natalie and I have not seen before. It'd be great to work on something that we're not familiar with. That would be a different experience. But until the next time, go out there and make sure the social media is done right. I was Pascal, and she was Natalie 𝗍𝗍. Bye for now.